I just keep thinking to Clare when I think of Cork, because if Tony Kelly buries his chance against on Collins the last day, I think we'd have beaten Dublin, and we didn't ever fear Kilkenny. So it's hard not to think about Clare being in the final Sunday. It wouldn't have taken an awful lot, only a small bit of luck, but it's Cork and Limerick, and I think the way Limerick can turn it on when they want to means that they're favourites, and deservedly so. Maybe not as clear as the bookies are making them. I think they want to, I don't know, they want to 6 or 7 on in places, but Cork about 10-3. But I'd say I'd say 60-40 in favour of Limerick anyway.
Brendan, your thoughts, and I suppose you're close enough to them down there in Killaloe. You're close to all the rivals down there, but Limerick's to lose, Brendan?
Yeah, you'd have to say it's Limerick's to lose, I suppose, but Cork in a final, how many times over the years have we seen Cork going in as underdogs and overturned teams? But I think, if you go back to the game in Thurles, when Cork and Limerick played, if Cork took their chances that night, they could have upset Limerick, and I think they'll go back to that match and look, there was enough chances there to, at the end of the day, Limerick won by 8 points, I think, 7 or 8 points. But I think this will be close as well. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion the way the bookies have it. And Limerick have stuttered their way through the championship, really. They put in performances along, but they've never put in a constant hour, a full hour, full-on performance. And I think, though it is Limerick's to lose, I think Cork will
speed merchants. So I can't see past Limerick.
Sean, your thoughts?
I wouldn't be as confident as Danny now. Certainly wouldn't be. I wouldn't totally rule out Cork at all. I just think they're improving every day. I think they're moulding together as a unit, as a winning unit. Particularly, what really has impressed me is their defence. If you go back for the past 5 or 6 years, Cork's defence was a huge problem. We often heard Gerald Nairn quoting, down the middle they were very vulnerable, 3 and 6, and the wings as well. But I think they have tightened up big time. I think there's serious work being done. Donald O'Grady's hand is written all over the 6 defenders and the midfielders. And I certainly wouldn't rule out Cork completely. I know Limerick are hot favourites, but if you go back to the Limerick game, to the Cork Limerick game, the game changed on the 2 goals just before half time, right? Kyle Hayes came from wing back and went 70 yards and scored a goal. I don't think he'll be allowed to do that in an All-Ireland final. And if they can keep it within 4 or 5 or 6 points, Cork could come in the last 10 or 12 minutes. I wouldn't rule them out, being honest.
I suppose, Mark, even going back to the first night as well, if Hoggy got the penalty in the first half, it could have been a very, very different story. But Cork have to take all their chances. But realistically, it's very hard to look past Limerick.
It is. You'd have to say they're the form team, and they seem to be the team that, when the questions are asked, they can step up in different quarters, and it puts kind of daylight between themselves and the opposition. But look, I suppose you have to say there's a bit of momentum with Cork. They're improving every day. They go out and they will ask different types of questions. That they've some, like you see the attitude they have towards getting goals now. When your man Jack O'Connor, he wasn't in the game for 45 minutes at all the last day, and another time he'd have been taken off, and he came good eventually. So look at there's a different kind of a strength about him in recent times. But again, I wouldn't be as bullish as Danny, but you'd say definitely that Limerick are the farm team, and you'd have to kind of favour them. Yeah,
I think so. Just one thing, I think the difference too is, if you go back to the 19 game, Cork had to bring on Harnedy after he gone off. Remember, they'd no subs or nothing. You look at the impact that their bench is making now. Like 11 scores come off the bench to Leicester. Kingston came in and rattled 7. Limerick's bench isn't as strong as what it used to be. So the benches could have a major factor in this match too.
Yeah, and another thing on the Cork have lost 3 6-point leads in the last 6 matches, or the last 3 matches, Clare, Dublin and last Sunday. Yeah. So look, if they're ahead of Limerick, they'll really have to put them away.
That's where the bench will come in.
Yeah,
I suppose, Danny, it'll have to see Kingston staying on the line again the next day after scoring 7 points.
Yeah, look, he was phenomenal for the 45 minutes he was on, but he said it himself after the game. He hadn't been playing well. He wasn't actually surprised to be dropped. So, and one swallow doesn't make a summer. He wasn't good. He wasn't good in the other games when he came on. So, and will he get that kind of room? I thought Kilkenny stood off him an awful lot last Sunday and gave him the room, made him look practically better than they are. You know, in all fairness, Pat said it. We were a puck of a ball away from beating them. And we didn't hold for the first 35 minutes. I think Tony Kelly even said that yesterday. He was talking on the PWC things, and he said, Clare were only held for the second half, and yet could have taken it, you know. So, and likewise, would we be as confident as some of the beaten Limerick as Cork are? I don't think we would. So I just can't see Cork doing it Sunday. And I know Cork are a different animal in the final and everything, but so are Limerick. Yeah.
There's no doubt. And even going back, as you said, Pat, to the Clare unlucky not to be in the final. And look, we have to say, in fairness to Brian Lohan, done a great job, and hopefully he's going to stay on.
Yes, well, sure. There's no news from Lohan himself yet. Maybe he has enough of it, but whether he has or hasn't, he has done a good job, a decent job in fairness. And I think the Clare team is competitive, which we want them to be. And, you know, we're going out in games now, you know, confident enough that we can give a performance. We're probably still a couple of players short of we need to be maybe in our bench, and of course missing the likes of O'Donnell. And I know Peter Dugan has been talked to death. I think he's due back to play against Fecal as far as I know, but as we'll be talking about shortly. But if we could have all our players, I think Brian Lohan would do a decent job again next year. Look, it's very fine margins between being a hero and being an all-star, you know, as we know from the games this year. You know, it's millimetres between saves and goalposts and refs decisions and all kinds of things. But yeah, I'd say the players would be happy enough for Lohan to stay on, definitely. Yeah,
and we look forward to that as well. Look, as we'll get down to the main topic of the night is the championships, and everyone is starting off this weekend. We start off with Group 1 of Clonlara, Aina, Kilnamona, Kilmaley, The Mills and Whitegate. Brendan, this is a group of death.
You couldn't have put it any better, Leo. A group of death. You know, and I suppose how many times over the years have we said Whitegate always get a bad draw? Well, they got 4 of them in this one. You know, you couldn't go any worse. But like I think when the draw came out, if you sit down and were going through it, what 2 will come out, you could come up with 3 or 4 different combinations. Like, you know, you could say Kilmaley, The Mills, you could say The Mills, Clonlara, you could go, you know, I think we're ruling out Whitegate, but there's always a game in Whitegate. You know, they could upset someone along the way, but to come out of the group, I think would be a bit much. As to who's going to come out of it, it's an absolute lottery. You know, the interesting thing I'd love to see with Clonlara is, are they going to put Conlon at 6? You know, he's been centre back for the county. Will they stick with it? You know, will the club do it, or will they revert him back to centre forward or full forward? That's the interesting I'd like to see. We're always saying about Kilmaley, you know, how many times have we sat around the table here, we think it's their year, and they just flatter to deceive. They never turn up when it comes to the business end of it. The Mills, you know, they have to back up their county final appearance. You know, it was not so long ago, it was a 2 or 3 years ago, they were fighting relegation, so you're looking for consistency there. So, you know, it is a group of death, like as it says, and you could go with any combination was going to come out.
Denny, you know, we look at Aina, Kilnamona as well there, and Brendan didn't mention them. You know, so many of these teams in this group could be potential championship winners.
Absolutely, sure. 4 of the 5 have probably been in at least semi-finals over the last couple of years. You know, and any of them under there are capable of beating anyone in the county. I just think looking at the group and most of the matches I suppose will be in the park, and they might suit the running teams, you know, which Kilmaley, Aina, Kilnamona, they have young fellas, they're good young teams, and their space might suit them. But if Clonlara have to get their team right, we always talk every year about Clonlara, if they put their team right. They have the players. I mean, they have serious talent on there. They had 4 of the Clare 20s, I think, and 4 or 5, and should have 2 or 3 the seniors. You know, it's just if they can gel together, they'll be extremely hard to beat. But the problem for them is will they gel together? There always seems to be a problem down there. You know, my own fancy for that group now would be Aina, Kilnamona and The Mills. Would you believe that? I think The Mills, they're a good championship team. And they'll pick out two or 3 games to win. Like if you win 3 of the 5 games or 3 of the 4 games, I suppose you're through. They won't mind if they're first or second.
Sean, looking at that, you know, from an East Clare side, and you know, The Mills and Whitegate, you know, I suppose everyone says Whitegate is going to be probably the the team that's going to get the 4, not going to be, maybe potentially find it hard to win any of the games. You know, the Mills were in the county final last year. As Brendan said, they were in relegation the year before. Bit of consistency. How do you see this one going?
It's just really difficult to know. Whitegate, you know, same as every other year, we never hear anything about them, and they work away quietly, and next thing they come in the first round of the championship and they put in a big performance, and they have done that over a number of years
consistently.
And I certainly wouldn't rule out. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they'll be the team that'll be fighting relegation, but you know, just Aina Kilmore and Kilmaley, two neighbours, you know, you couldn't ask for a more spicy draw, being honest. That could go either way. Aina Kilmore got well beaten by Fecal in the crucial cup game that actually decided the competition. You know, Fecal won that game by 10 or 11 points. So I could see maybe Kilmaley maybe coming forward there. Sorry, it was Kilmaley. So I could see a reaction to that in Kilmaley. You know, I think that they'll respond to that, and that'll be a huge battle between themselves and Aina Kilmore. And the Mills, I suppose the Mills on form last year, you know, getting to county final, there's a certain amount of confidence there facing into a championship this year. But they have to start winning matches, and it is all about, you know, I think the first game is crucial, you know, whether it is at any grade you play, because you build a bit of momentum if you win, and you go on and you progress, and you know, obviously you're more interested in training, and the whole thing takes off from there. So that's the way I see it.
And Mark, you're taking it, and the Mills are playing Clonlara this weekend, and as Sean said, Aina Kilmore, Kilmaley derby match. So Whitegate is sitting back. We'll get a look at the rest of the teams for in round 1. Probably suit them as well, because they're carrying a number of injuries on there.
Yeah. If looking at it from their point of view, you'd kind of hope, or you'd have been hoping to have fallen that way for them. Now, how we're forgetting here, how you'd analyse them or whatever, but I've a feeling this year now I'd kind of fancy them
club hurlers. So I think Ballyea at the top of the group, second place between the winners of that crushing Cratloe game whenever it is played.
Sean, to follow on Denny there.
It wouldn't be as much doom and gloom as Denny is now in relation to Waterford, but it's a tough group. It seems on the optics